Hello, and welcome to Monday Mug Mentions, week 20. I cannot believe we are 20 weeks into this fun segment where I get to talk to folks about things that interest me in the tabletop industry over the course of a cup of coffee. So I really appreciate you all joining me and my haggard beard today. It is all over the place. I cannot tame my beard. I think we're getting ready for another trim. So good to see you all today. I hope everyone's doing well. Let me take a look here. Ooh, okay. Wow. Good morning. There's so many of you here already. Thank you for being here. Michael, Daniel, Eric, Courtney, hello. Good afternoon. So glad to see you. I'm glad you all like the new intro. That is a really fun thing. I'm really happy with it. Let's get right into it this week. I am drinking a tasty cup of a local coffee shop called Brewed Awakenings, and you guys know how much I like puns. So, sorry, my beard's really bothering me there. So y'all know how much I like puns, and Brewed Awakenings is a local coffee place, and this is their eye opener blend. I went by this morning and picked some up. You definitely did not miss it, Derek. You should definitely stick around as well. Glad to see you. Let's see here. Let's see. Tim, so good to see you as well. Gil, so good to see you. Hello. Good afternoon. I hope y'all are all having a wonderful Monday back from the long weekend or perhaps even long break. Or if you didn't have a long break from working this weekend, I hope you're having a great Monday. So, yeah, this is a pretty tasty cup of coffee. It's not what I'm used to. I believe it said it is a nutty and winey combination. Let's see. I've got the bag right over here. Let's grab it. So this is the Brewed Awakenings. Let me make sure I've got you all on camera. Yeah, so this is the Brewed Awakenings Eye Opener blend, and you'll see, I mean, this is just from a local spot here. It says Brewed Awakenings, serving more than a cup of Joe. Well, I mean, I bought a bag of coffee. I didn't get a cup of Joe. So it says our Eye Opener is a smooth, medium-bodied variety that has a nutty, winey, and complex flavor. And I think Courtney agreed that I'm nutty and winey and complex. So this might be a good coffee for me. It's an interesting taste. I will say it's got like a bite to it, and it definitely you can taste sort of a nuttiness there. It's pretty good. I think it's pretty tasty. I will back off a little bit from the sound. It says the sound is a little loud, picking you up. Breathing in pops. Okay, cool. I will do my best. Also, I have my air conditioner on. That may be part of it always because it is hot in New England right now. It's probably hot everywhere, I think, right now. So, so good to see y'all. I'm so glad you're all here today. Let's move on from the coffee, which is delicious, but we've got a lot to talk about this week. Tim said he spied Sagrada over my shoulder. That is one of the games we're talking about this week. Let's go straight into that one. Why not? I was actually going to start with the digital, but I think we can go either way this time. I think what we'll do is we'll start with Sagrada since you can already see it. As you can see, it was made by Adrian Adamescu. I think I pronounced that correctly, and Daryl Andrews. I know I pronounced that correctly. And they are incredibly creative and talented designers who made a game that essentially, in my opinion, is probably one of the best like dice rolling and placing games out there. I know it was nominated for a Dice Tower Award recently, so that's always important to I mean, you can keep up with the different awards it's been nominated for. I think it was nominated for a BGG, Golden Geeks, and things like that. So it was it's one of my favorite games to roll dice. You'll see I have it right back there, and I think it's really clever. So not only is it really clever, but it has this just presence. And if you've never seen Sagrada, if you see it over my shoulder, it's eye catching. I'm gonna bring up an image on our screen here. So let's bring back our screen. If y'all don't remember from last week, we've got our nice new fancy screen here that pops on, and we will get the Sagrada image. I don't have a video this week for Sagrada because I didn't get some chance to shoot some, but this is an awesome image courtesy of Mr. W. Eric Martin on Board Game Geek, who always places great images with his reviews, and I think I snagged this one from the review. So sorry and thank you, Eric, for letting me use this one this week. So if you've not played Sagrada, you are doing a dice rolling then drafting mechanism where you collectively roll a group of dice, then you take them one by one from the different locations in the draft, and you place them based on different parameters that are in your sort of stained glass window. Now, the Sagrada Familia is, something that you can look up and look around the history of this actual, sort of these amazing stained glass windows that they built the game's theme around. But the colors, the amazing dice being transparent and working together if you're in like a lit room with sun, it really, really, really is a clever way to sort of show that off. You see the colors coming through onto the table, like if the sunlight hits the dice, and it looks like a stained glass window. Sagrada is relatively easy to pick up and easy to play as well, which I think is important because of the signals the box sends, right? Is that this is a fun and whimsical game with a beautiful sort of overall motif. So I'm really, really impressed with, just how many times I've played Sagrada and always wanted to play it again. And I mean, I have promos for it I haven't played with yet that I want to add into it. Gil says it's an awesome tactile experience as well, and I agree with that. I think that's one of the biggest things about it is that like you get to actually sit there and roll the dice, touch them, place them into the little spaces. And if you guys don't know what a cardboard inlay is, or where you have a cardboard chit cutout that allows you to sort of I guess the easiest way to put it is one that allows you to sort of place dice or cubes into a cardboard sort of area, and then from there they won't move if you tap the table. So if you think about it, double layered cardboard, and then you've cut out one of the areas and you can set the die in, and imagine it can't be shifted to the left or right unless you pick it up and take it out, right? So that's what the stained glass window boards are. So when you set things in, it's also very satisfying to place a die, right in a perfect little fitting place. And I think that's the same thing with cubes, and I really enjoy that with double-sided cardboard things. So Corey gave us some hearts. Good to see you, Corey. John, good to see you as well. Thank you all for joining this afternoon. Derek says Sagrada is one of my family's favorites. I think that it's probably one of those that really does well with a family environment just because of the way it looks, but also how clever and fun it is. Corey says, I have it, but yet to play it, although I've set it up. Going to go solo soon. It's a great solo game as well. I think that's something to be important. That's something that's important to have in a game these days, is to have a good solo aspect. Another thing that's really, really neat about this entire sort of, I guess you'd call it like dice rolling and then placing thing is this can be a very boring mechanism. There's a lot of ways to screw this up, and they did an amazing job of not only making this compelling but making it beautiful on the outside. Floodgate Games I think had a lot to do with that as well. But Daryl and Adrian put together a system that is just super fun and cool, and looks to me like one of the best sort of table presence plus great mechanism. A lot of times they say you can only have great art, or you can only have great mechanisms. You can never have both. I think honestly Sagrada has both, and that's why it was nominated for plenty of awards. I think it's one of the best dice rolling and placing games that probably exists. In current market, I'd be hard pressed to find something this impressive. So Tim says the Sudoku connection makes it extra accessible. Clicking for new gamers, I really agree with that. It's got that, yeah. And Brad says, Sagrada, how I want to love you, yet my poor little eyes can't tell the dice colors apart well enough. That's an interesting comment. I've never heard that about that, Brad. We'll have to, maybe they can do I think they could do a solid version where you don't have the transparent, but then you lose that beautiful table presence, right? Gil says Sagrada 5 and 6 player expansion should come out soon. I'm excited about those as well. James says Sudoku, the board game. I think so. It really is. It's got that satisfying puzzle every time you play it, and I really, really like it. I think that's I haven't played it solo. Now that people are mentioning that, I'm thinking I'm going to bust it out and try it solo since I've got it out. Corey laughs at James's comment, I believe, or one of mine. And Gil says, one problem I see is that every other game someone makes a mistake placing a die that everyone misses. You've got to pay attention quite a bit, but I think mistakes are common in all board games, so I think that's relatively common to see. I am going to finish up my talk about Sagrada for now, but this is really one of the best games. I mean, if you guys have not played Sagrada, you need to make sure you get it to the table. I think in terms of the like you said, the tactile fun and also the really incredible, like, just table presence. This is probably one of the best games, and one of those that when you own it, you just don't ever get rid of it. Like, this is in my collection forever. I'm really, really happy with it. So, let's move on to the digital game that's like this, and then we'll get into the media here pretty quick. So, good to see you, James. Thank you for joining us. Sagrada is really, really a great game. If you haven't played it, I definitely encourage you to go check it out. If you have a friend that has it, play their copy. So it's a lot of fun. But I want to talk about another game that's got dice rolling as a mechanism, and it's really an interesting challenge that these developers had, because you've got a you've got this mechanism where you're rolling dice on a computer now, right? And this is Tharsis by Zach Gage. This came out in 2016. I'll put up a little video of Tharsis, and there's some storyline behind it, and then there's some gameplay, and you'll see the dice rolling aspect pop up in a moment here. But Tharsis is a really weird and incredible game where dice rolling is also a mechanism, just like Sagrada. And a couple of comments here. Brad said, so long as other players group dice in color groups, I'm good-ish. Okay. And Derek says, on the mistake front, when calculating points at the end, if there was a mistake, we just have them remove the dice that aren't wrong until it's fixed. I think that's a good house rule for that as well. So that's a really clever way to do that too. Talking about Tharsis, and again, Sagrada is probably one of the most compelling dice rolling games that I've played in the last few years. I put it up there with like Quicks and things like that, where I really just will play it anytime somebody wants to play it. So with Tharsis, this is a solo experience. You're just rolling these dice, and the solo experience of Sagrada is probably somewhat similar, but this one's got sort of a cascading failure situation where you've got your ship and there's events that happen to it while you're out in space. And you'll notice immediately on my ship here, up on the screen right over here, sorry, it's always backwards for me. I'm still learning how to do that. I would be a terrible weatherman. On my screen right here, you'll see that you roll dice and you can place them in different areas, such as fixing the event that's gone wrong, but you can also take injuries if you roll the wrong die. You can move people around to different locations, and then you can place your die to also do research. And the research is usually things like it helps you get an extra die for that turn, or heal somebody and things like that. Your crew member can die. Things can blow up and never be repaired. Essentially, you can just lose pretty often in Tharsis. It's a very difficult solo puzzle to get through and complete the trip while maintaining your ship the entire time is pretty engaging, but it's also incredibly frustrating if you make mistakes. One thing I will say that's interesting about this compared to something like Sagrada, when we were talking about the scoring issues there that would come up that Derek and Gil and a few people brought up, a computer system will generally never make mistakes with scoring. So you can just allow it to make sure that it counts your hits or your points. And in general, you trust it because the computer system and the AI and the algorithm is all set up to work the way it's properly meant to. Now, that's good game design. There are bad games that don't work fundamentally out of the gate, but you're talking about something right here that's relatively boring in the scheme of things. Rolling dice with a click of a mouse and then placing them in different spots is a hard thing to make compelling, and they've done a really, really great job with Tharsis. And the way they did that is by having this, incredible storyline where you're trying to just get through, having a constant cascading failure situation. Cascading failures are something that we as board gamers generally, I know a lot of people don't understand that they do, but we really enjoy them. We like trying to pick up the pieces as everything's falling apart. And making that fun and not overbearingly frustrating is a big part of game design too. In Tharsis, it really walks that line of being super frustrating and sort of teaching you through punishment. Whereas in a lot of board games, if you teach through punishment, it may not work very well because you've got a situation where gamers may not enjoy that first play or two. They may shelve it and not come back to it. It's possible in digital games, but digital games are much easier to sort of turn into a roguelike, where you've got a person sort of like, my character died, I want to try that again real quick, because you can easily launch and reset the game with the click of a button. With a board game, you may have to reset an entire game state that could take you hours or, even 45 minutes just to do, and that may be too much of a barrier to go, hey, let's restart real quick. So that's something to think about in terms of the length of game, and I think Sagrada does a great job in being super accessible, not overstaying its welcome. For a dice game, it's probably one of the best, that in terms of being able to just have staying presence, and you look at it, retailers are going to love it. The box is just incredible. There's so many things good about it that I think it's great. And Tharsis does something as well where it's pretty much showing off a heavy amount of dice rolling action without doing too much on the outside. Like it's not trying to be a full-on space game. It's not trying to give you a full-on narrative or story. It's just giving you pieces of why you're where you are, and then really focusing on this brutal dice rolling engine and mechanism. And I think that that's something to be said for, focusing on where the fun is. And I think Tharsis found out how to find the fun in a dice rolling, dice clicking sort of drag and drop thing. I think Sagrada found the fun in rolling dice and placing them in a grid. If you told me as a publisher, oh, my game is about rolling dice and then we're going to place them in a 4x4 grid, and you have to get certain numbers and certain colors in certain places, I might go, that sounds incredibly boring. The vision that this group had to say, oh, let's make it about these stained glass windows. Let's also offer a drafting mechanism. There's so many cool things happening in it that honestly I don't think if I were just told the pitch I would have seen. So that's another lesson to be learned, is that we say constantly that we think we know what something would be or wouldn't be good as a publisher, but the fact is, I think if you just told me the premise of Sagrada without the stained glass window theme, I would probably be pretty confused as to where the fun was. And the fun is definitely inherently there. That makes it to my table regularly. So Gil says, I love dice, but Tabletop Simulator has a nice feel on rolling dice. You can hold the dice in the air by rolling sounds, mitigate the lack of touching dice. Yeah, I do like digital ones where you can sort of shake the mouse and the dice roll around and drop. That's also fun. Corey says, I wonder if easily resettable will be a hook or angle rather than highly replayable for some games. Easily resettable, depending on your time frame, could be very important. If you have a 5-minute game, it needs to be reset quickly and not in 20 minutes, or else the fun's just going to be ruined in the reset, right? Michael says, I love Sagrada, but I was working on a dice pool building game with a stained glass aesthetic when it kickstarted. So it goes. Yeah, that's a pretty constant thing as we all have similar ideas. We're working on a B game right now, and of course I think it's probably because I'm on alert for that, but I'm seeing any B game that pops up and going, oh, there's so many B games. I think really it is when you're in the middle of designing something, you're looking for the other ones that are like that. So yeah, let's move on from Tharsis. That is a really, really fun game, but I would like to talk this week's media about a good friend of mine, as a matter of fact, and somebody that helped us get started in terms of, and helped us do really well with our Kickstarter, and helped us grow our audience, and a lot of the other things that I'm going to talk about in sort of the two-part bit here. So first thing I want to do is bring up the media for this week, and that is Derek Funkhauser with the Board Game Spotlight. If you guys don't know Derek, he spent the weekend keeping me entertained by walking around Dice Tower so I could see everything going on. I really appreciate that, Derek. I got to feel like I was there a little bit between Derek Funkhauser's videos and Daniel Zayas' selfies. I felt like I saw everything at Dice Tower Con. So I was really, really happy to get to sort of experience that. As many of you know, we recently had a baby, so I've been staying home for a lot of these summer conventions that I'd normally be out and about at. And it's definitely hard. I will admit that. Like, it's hard to see all your friends out having fun. At the same time, it's awesome to get to spend time with my new baby and watch him, grow and all that sort of stuff, and see smiles and giggles and things I wouldn't see if I were on the road. So I go back out on the road next weekend. We're back at Kineticon, but getting to see all of these fun and awesome things through Derek's eyes, and hear him ask questions that were relevant to my interests, were fantastic. So it was really, really nice to get to walk around Dice Tower Con sort of on Derek's arm there and hear him ask questions about games, thoughtful questions about what was coming next, thoughtful questions about what the game does, where the fun is, what do you do in this game? Not just, oh, okay, that's cool, and then walking past it. He really dove in on a lot of places where I wanted to see some stuff. So, hello, thank you for joining, Richard and Dwayne. Good to see y'all this afternoon. Thank you so much. It's really, really great to see y'all. Brad says that emoji oddly is similar to your selfies, Daniel. You all, if you're watching on YouTube later, can't see this, but Daniel Zayas put a humongous smiley face emoji in the chat, and I don't know if you've ever seen his selfies, but they are full of the best smiles. So I really, really enjoy seeing those as well. Daniel is an awesome friend that works well with us as well. So the thing about Derek and Board Game Spotlight is that if you want to find a place where you can just have a good time and talk about board games and everything's generally positive. We're not going to sit around bashing each other or bashing games or doing that negative negging. Board Game Spotlight, their content is super positive. Their Facebook group is super positive. If you want a place to just be happy, I recommend Board Game Spotlight. That's the place I go to like post with fun. So it is one of the best groups, the best communities, and of course we know James Hudson helped build it with Derek. Derek has taken the reins, and watching him walk around Dice Tower, he's done it very, very well. So it's probably one of the biggest things that makes me smile is to see Derek sort of like taking over this Board Game Spotlight, doing it really, really well, fresh take. He's got an interesting way of interacting that's not going to be your normal sort of like pop in, pop out. He's asking thoughtful questions. I can't stress enough how important that is if you're walking around a con to actually ask questions. So Daniel says, I love my friends and I love to capture us together in that moment in time. That moment in time is very often, Daniel, but I love taking selfies with you at cons. I think our last one was at New York Toy Fair. It's been too long. We need to see each other again soon, sir. Richard Anke says Board Game Spotlight is awesome. Hashtag Board Game Spotlight is awesome. I agree. I think it's probably one of the better communities that you can get into if you really want to have a good time talking about games and be positive. I don't know how to explain it. Like when I see a BGS member, like a Board Game Spotlight person at a convention, and they come up and say, "Oh, hey, we've interacted on Board Game Spotlight." Usually, first of all, I know their name because we've interacted like a bunch of times. Second of all, they're really genuine and nice. And third of all, it's like a little family. I got to admit, like it is a really, really fun group. It is a fantastic community, and that sort of is a segue into what we're going to talk about for this community building for your crowdfunding purposes. Is what are your goals in reality? Are your goals to create customers, or is your goal to create a community? And I think that if you look at what Board Game Spotlight and Derek and James have done over the time, it's not to just create customers. It's to create a community of people who enjoy talking with each other about this shared hobby. And I think if you do that and you focus on that, I think the customer aspect is just sort of like an afterthought, to be honest. You want to like show people why this thing is fun. If they understand why it's fun and why we all enjoy it, then you have a much better chance of going, and this is my thing that I sell of this, and you're welcome to either take it or not, if it's for you or if it's not. And I think that's a much better approach than what we see a lot of creators trying to do, which is, hey, here's my thing. I haven't interacted with you at all, and it's become a lot more common. So it's a very, very big thing to me in that what they've done is natural and is a lot of fun. And I think you should be having fun. That's like a big part of this, right? We all making games to like to have fun and forget about things or work on things, or even we can even address real problems with games, right? Like I talked about the game that Michael Fox did recently about someone's life ending. There's a lot you can do with games, but if you've got a great community of people, they'll support you through a lot of these different experiences and experiments that you may be trying. So for the Kickstarter advice, I just want to talk about what you do to build a community and what the best way to do that is. And Derek says, Marshall, thanks so much for your kind words. Games are fun. Hashtag you're welcome at the table. Thank you very much. I think that if you guys haven't heard about the hashtag you're welcome at my table, that's something we should just address real fast before. That's part of the community building, but anyone is welcome at my table. That's like to play games with me. That's anyone, regardless of race, gender, or any other preference whatsoever. You're welcome to play games with me. This is a fun and amazing thing. And I encourage other people to open that door as well. Do not, sit with the same people and always play. If you have an opportunity to introduce a stranger to this hobby, welcome them to the table and teach them the game. I think that's very, very important. I think we should be great ambassadors. I've said this many times on the show. We should be great ambassadors for our hobby prior to being salespeople. So I think that's I love the movement of that hashtag. So I just want to help spread that around a little bit, and we will add that to the tag here on the YouTube and all that stuff that we do this week. So we will probably add that as a permanent tag, because I mean, it's really, anyone can come play games with us. We love making games. We love playing games. If you like that too, or you want to know more about it, you're welcome. That's more, and that's one of the places I play is Providence Game Guild, and I think that is definitely the overall philosophy is that anyone is welcome at the table there, and I love that. So, all right. Building a community. What are the ways that we've done it as Yanaguana? We've done it very slowly. I think doing it slowly with an organic nature is pretty well rounded approach. However, there are ways to do it better than I have. There's ways that if you look at what like Board Game Spotlight's done, like you have constant good content coming out, and you're talking with people, and you're having a good time, and creating a community that's fostering fun. I think you're going to have a lot of success if you just focus in on that as an overall philosophy. Now down to some specific tips of what you need to do. Go to trade shows. Anything that has anything to do with board games, whether it's a Comic-Con, if it's in your area, you can afford to get there, and you have a game that's sort of playable, and you can even start to show it off. If you have any idea of when you want to kickstart, you should be showing that game off at conventions. Those convention goers are the folks who, in general, are interested in games to the point that they will pay to go and look at things that are new. Now, at a Comic-Con, you're going to get a mix of people who are there for celebrity and then some games and some merchandise and stuff like that. But at a board game convention, like the recent Dice Tower Con or PAX Unplugged or an Origins or a Gen Con, you're going to have an amazing, amazing response from individuals there compared to large, massive marketing campaigns you do online that just show off, this is our Kickstarter, this is the price. I think in general you're going to have a lot more success engaging people one-on-one, and that's really where some of our best fans and friends in this industry and sort of people who support our games undoubtedly are people we met at PAX South in our first couple years, or doing smaller shows like TempleCon. We'll be doing Neon this summer, which is let me make sure I don't mess this up. It is a synthwave retro futurism, I believe. That is the convention that we're going to later in August. So I mean, don't just close yourself off to this like only board game thing either. I think that's a big deal. It's like we've met a lot of people. I think TempleCon was a steampunk one, and we took Stir Fry there and sold Stir Fry 18. We sold bucket loads for the amount of people that were there. We had a great show, and we met a lot of people that we ended up working with later. I think that's where we met Ryan from Wild Power. Their game Streets of Steel recently was on Kickstarter and did real well, and he did our mini for the guitar, if you remember. So it's connections are made, sales were made. And this was a show that was about steampunk primarily, and sort of an adult-themed show. It wasn't huge on like kids' games or anything like that. And we still had a great show. We did fantastic. Those organizers are putting on Neon, this new synthwave convention in Warwick, and we're going to go to that because why not? It's just something new. It's something fresh. It's different people, right? And we've got a game about music with Record, so why wouldn't we go show it off? Those types of engagements are super important in my opinion, and I think that's one of the biggest things you can do is go out and actually be at the place and do the thing. And these folks that I just talked about, Daniel, Derek, Richard Anke, he's, if you guys don't know Richard, he's the man for GTM. So, and Richard's out at everything. You travel all the time. That's what our business is we're having to go out and just talk to people and show the thing off, because those are the folks that are actually engaging and doing the word of mouth, talking about games. The influencers are going to be at the shows. They're not going to be generally sitting at home every weekend watching things like I did this weekend. So Dwayne says, sometimes I say no cats. You're welcome at the table. Dwayne, I think animals that's a preference basis. If you want to allow your animals at the table, you're welcome to. I agree that I think things could get pretty messy. So Corey says, synthwave is my kind of jam. That's fantastic. I enjoy a little synthwave too. I like all kinds of music though. So yeah, the other things about building a community are answering when asked questions about what you do and open transparency. And that's a big thing for us. We're pretty transparent with what's going on, with what we're doing, with where we are. If we're having delays in something, we talk about it. If we're having a problem with something, we talk about it. If something happens, we generally roll with the punch and we don't blame either. I think that's one of I think that's one of the biggest things is if something happens, sort of roll with the punch and don't do the blame game thing. I've said this quite a few times on the show, but I mean, I just still see it on Kickstarter so often where a creator will start going into the, oh, it's not my fault. It's, it's this or that. And I just, listen, just own up to, hey, this happened. We're handling it the best we can. Our priority is to get you a game. I mean, and if that's not your priority, that's a definite issue. But yeah, you definitely want to make sure you're being open and honest, and that's a big part of it for me. So, Richard says, I love our community. Want to play games with all. We need to play some games together. I think we only ever get to chat at booths because we're always both working, Rich. But it's I'm so glad that you came by today. I appreciate that. So. And I think that essentially, if any of you are interested in doing this for real, full time, and you want a Kickstarter community built, you need to be going out to shows if you can afford them. I'm not saying take out loans or break the bank to do that. Go to local ones. There's stuff in your area. You can find it that's smaller. And then from there, just engage with your community and be genuine. And I know that sounds easy and simple, but it really isn't for a lot of folks. It can be difficult. So it was difficult for us initially. Like we just sort of stayed in our box and designed games and then put them out and said, let's see if this works. And we got lucky with one out of two. But that's not always going to happen. So, you want to try and find out earlier what people want, what they need, what they're looking for, before you just design inside a box and sort of, and that builds a community in itself. And asking people, what do you like and what do you like about this game? What do you think would make this more compelling or fun? That engagement by itself is building a community. So I would definitely encourage you to go out and do those things. If you are anyone who's ambitious about starting your own Kickstarter, remember that starting a Kickstarter is starting a business. The moment your Kickstarter funds, you are now a business owner and you have a substantial amount of responsibilities. I wish someone would have told me all of those sorts of things prior to getting started myself. I love what I do, but I did not necessarily intend to become a game publisher. I wanted to design games of my own and get them published. The best way I knew how to do that was to do it myself. I don't necessarily agree with that, as a philosophy for the future for others, but it worked out well for us, and I really love publishing. So I think that that's one of the biggest things that people need to know as well, is if you do this, you've started a business, and it's going to take up a large portion of your life. So Daniel says, Rich is the nicest guy. Always happy to see him and talk shop. Yeah. He's a very intimidating man, right? But he's like just a big teddy bear. I think we've done hugs plenty of times, and he's never squashed me, so I feel safe. Gil says, communication is key. If the publisher doesn't communicate or is never seen, it's a bad sign. If you're not seen, you're not remembered. That's a great point, Gil. That's part of the reason I chat here every week is just to talk and check in. And if there's a problem with the thing, I'm going to tell you about. We're running behind or we caught up. Fortunately, most of the things I get to talk about are good. So. Dwayne says, will you be at Dragonflight Convention next month? I am not aware of it, but I might have to look into it. I always have to schedule off in advance. We are both working parents, so I always have to sort of negotiate that. But I will look into that. I will have to do that. I think that's pretty much most of what I've got for this week. If you guys have any other questions, I'd be happy to answer them. But this has been a really, really delicious cup of coffee, I got to say. As it cooled down and I've had a little more, I'm really enjoying it. It's, again, Brewed Awakenings Eye Opener. And this is only a local Rhode Island place. But if you're interested, I can probably get some to you. All right. If you guys have anything else, just feel free to leave a comment, and I will get back to it afterwards. Thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it. Michael, I just mentioned it there. I think it's a Brewed Awakenings Eye Opener blend. So thank you again for being here. I really enjoyed this. It's such a great way to start the week. We are getting ready to dive into some contract stuff to look it over, and then dive into some more publishing stuff to look it over. So I've got a nice busy day in front of me here. I hope you all have a nice busy day, or at least a nice big cup of coffee. I hope you're having a fantastic week, and I hope the weekend didn't wear you out too much. So thank you guys for being here. Thank you all for being here so much, and we'll see you next week, same time, same place. Thanks again. Bye-bye.